into.
No, I think that it's really important to bring it back to explain to people why we are so enthusiastic about Lightning Network. And there's nobody better than Alyse to tell us about some of these companies. And I find when I learn about companies and what the companies are doing, and that those companies are hiring more people, they have demand from their customers, that tells me something about the market. And I'm always trying to gain the information about the market. And what I see in Lightning Network is just this design forward thinking that you're talking about, and changing the user experience of money itself. Forget Bitcoin. Use Lightning and understand how amazing it can be to use this type of money on the internet. And oh, by the way, it's powered by this thing called Bitcoin, which is a decentralized currency. It's really important to think about those things.
The Bitcoin Lightning Network is a second-layer protocol built on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. It aims to address some of the scalability issues and transaction speed limitations of the Bitcoin network by enabling a different kind of transaction. The Lightning Network is like having a super fast, low-cost way to send and receive Bitcoin payments with your friends. It's like having your own digital cash system that's as convenient as sending a text message, but with the security and reliability of the Bitcoin blockchain behind it.
And it reminds me of the original Andreas Antonopoulos Lightning Network speech that I watched so many years ago, which described Lightning Network potentially as streaming money. And it didn't exist yet. We were still in the SegWit phase of the Lightning Network history, so pre-Lightning. But thinking of thinking of using Bitcoin with Lightning Network as streaming money is not native to Bitcoin. It's not something you can do with Bitcoin. It is something you can do with Lightning. And if we can explain Lightning as a new use case of money, or new type of way to use money, as you're saying, Alyse, then that can break down a lot of walls that we previously had with Bitcoin, because the critique of Bitcoin is that it's slow and clunky, which is necessary and good, but it precludes all these other use cases. And I think that's where you are right now in thinking about Lightning and the growth. Is that accurate?
That's exactly right. And let me mention another protocol coming from Lightning Labs, but open source, of course, which is L402. And Nick, I imagine that you're familiar with this, but when we talk about streaming money, we have to talk about L402, because essentially what that is it's a way to append small amount of data to a payment. And what that does ultimately is unlock the potential of the web to be able to exchange data or access in small denominations of value, so that the web becomes more open. And this arrives at a time, this is on mainnet, this arrives at a time when consumer AI is taking off. And the very interesting thing about this is that because we all have access to ChatGPT, we think that it's easy and open. And in fact, it's not. And that's really a result of chargeback risk in credit cards, and that there's a cost for OpenAI to allow access to ChatGPT. And so this chargeback risk is really an incredible pain point. A lot of people and businesses, in fact, don't have access or are gated as a result. L402 can solve that problem. To give you a very small example that's related to a very large TAM, is that with L402, you can pay per API call and not have to worry about the chargeback risks that are inherent to credit card products. And so I offer this as an example because sometimes it's hard to understand what the value of streaming payments might be. But what the value of streaming payments is for a company like OpenAI is access to global demand and getting paid for the resources they expend when ChatGPT answers a question. So there's really very significant implications here. And the fact that there's a network effect in Lightning Network means that early adopters will be those with the most acute pain. But once an inflection point is reached, the pain will be in not adopting Lightning. And so part of what will happen in the cycle is getting closer or reaching that change point, that inflection point where if you're not integrated with Lightning as a business or as a user, you lack access to the same size TAM as your competitors have.
TAM stands for Total Addressable Market. It's a term commonly used in business and marketing to refer to the overall revenue opportunity available for a specific product or service within a defined market. And when she says network effects, she is referring to the value of the Lightning Network increasing as more people use it, and pain will hit companies that are not utilizing the Lightning Network.
It's almost as if the AI boom is bringing about the understanding that we've had for many years, which is that global money that doesn't have payment processing companies at the fulcrum, but instead at the edges, that the current way that we do payment processing via credit cards is an inferior way to conduct global online money to Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. So Lightning Network potentially unlocking the web and the way we use the web in a truly global sense. It's really fascinating, and I think that we should all think about Lightning Network as an accelerant for Bitcoin technology, and the way that we access a billion people is through more technologies built on top of Bitcoin, not just with Bitcoin itself. Drive your investment thesis toward Lightning Network companies.
That's a great question. So first of all, exchanges have a clear and acute need for Lightning Network for the efficiencies that Lightning Network creates in payments, and it's useful for exchanges in interfacing onboarding and offboarding Bitcoin with their user base. So Lightning Network has a really interesting growth trajectory, projected growth trajectory, in that those with acute need have started using Lightning Network. We've seen really significant growth. We've seen clear product market fit, but there's a network effect to Lightning Network. And so while we are, and the power of that network effect will have implications on the pace of adoption and the types of groups, enterprises, and financial institutions that feel the need to adopt, or that see the balance between pain and reward, favoring the reward of adopting Lightning Network. So while exchanges have adopted and received benefit from Lightning Network, what we're looking towards now is the impact of enterprise tools coming to market to allow other large businesses to get the value of Lightning Network as well. It makes sense that a group like Kraken would have the sophistication to adopt Lightning Network without needing to accept or tolerate the risk that can come with a new payment technology. Now, other businesses, those that are not crypto or Bitcoin native, like Kraken is, can also get this 10x, 100x upgrade in their payment operations by using Lightning. However, they're unlikely to do that at the cost of payment reliability, of degrading the payment experience for their transaction partner, whether that be a retail user or a business partner. And they're certainly not going to adopt Lightning if that puts them at risk of breaking their own sort of guidelines and frameworks for how they operate payments, including compliance with government regulations. And they will not take those risks. And so what's been really exciting to see, and will have very significant impact in this cycle, is companies like Voltage or like Amboss, and Amboss as the data layer to the Lightning Network, that have introduced tools that can allow enterprise to adopt Lightning without having to degrade the payment experience or to accept risks of payments that are out of compliance with government standards. And so what I mean by that is, can you use the Lightning Network and make sure that you are not interacting with a node in a country that would raise a flag with regulators? And this sort of exists outside of an enterprise's, even sort of like ethical standards on what a payment process should or may entail. It's just about being able to maintain efficient business operations while getting the benefits of the Lightning Network. And it's inefficient to be flagged for breach within your payment operations. And so being able to simulate your payments in order to assure reliability, being able to set payment operations so that you know the regions or the characteristics of the nodes that you will interact with in processing the payment, is just sort of base scenario. It's what an enterprise must have in order to adopt. And so we expect that in this cycle and with those tools, enterprise will finally be able to adopt Lightning, or early movers in enterprise will be able to adopt Lightning and integrate it in a meaningful way.
And the two companies you mentioned are Voltage, a former sponsor of the Bitcoin layer, and a company that we're definitely familiar with, providing infrastructure to companies that want to traffic in Bitcoin using the Lightning Network and don't want to do it themselves. And the other company, Amboss, which has used a portion of my original thesis about Lightning Network, which is that as capital moves through the Lightning Network, those that are moving it will earn money, Bitcoin denominated, without any counterparty, merely just the institution of payment channels. And Amboss is now basically has a live product, Magma, which allows you to traffic in the channels themselves, because the channels themselves have utility. because they allow you to move money through the Lightning Network. So talk to us a little bit what you can about Amboss and why you invested in them, and maybe just some high level thoughts on that company and what they're doing.
So Amboss was a very exciting investment for us, and we've been able to be there as the company grew and both helped advance the Lightning Network and then themselves responded dynamically to the stages the Lightning Network has matured through. So